Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our masterclass, Wealth Secrets for First Generation High Earners. I'm Deborah Owens. I'm going to give folks just a few minutes to get in here. We're streaming live on LinkedIn as well, but I'd love to have folks in the Zoom room with me. So if you are on LinkedIn and you want to join us on Zoom, the link to come into the Zoom room is right there. So welcome, 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 everybody. Come on in. I know we'll have a few other people joining us. You could be at work and unable to turn on your camera. That's cool too. But if you can turn on your camera, I would love, love, love to get the energy, if you will, from the folks in the room. So come on in. One of my team members is going to be joining me in just a moment. But I'm glad you took the time out to join us. Again, if you can't turn your camera on, please do. It's okay. Yes, there will be a recording after. Oh, good, Tanya. It's so good to see you, one of our most recent members to WealthyU. You'll only be able to join for 30 minutes. It's okay. Yes, there will be a recording after. I will be respectful of your time. So come on in. We've had about 113 people sign up, but that means absolutely nothing in this world of technology. But for those of you who are joining me online, we're streaming on LinkedIn as well as YouTube, as well as Facebook. So we're doing all the things. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Deborah Owens. I'm founder and CEO of WealthyU, where we teach first generation high earners strategies that will help them keep more of what they earn, grow it faster, and hopefully achieve financial independence on time or before time. I know many members in my community say, Deb, I am ready to make these things work. So if that's you, you're in the right place. At any rate, though, in the chat, I know you took out your busy time to join me, and I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and tell me where you're from. Like, what city are you in? So I love to give shout outs, and I love to know where we're touching people in the wonderful world of technology. So awesome. Let me just see. Sounds good, sounds good. Okay. Make sure on my tag. Excellent. So Trish, you're in Maryland. I am too. Tanya is in the DMV. Letitia, wow, all these DCers. Awesome. Okay, Monet, Atlanta. Okay, awesome. Okay, well, great. So today in the time that I have with you, I am gonna be respectful of your time. Trish says, let's connect for happy hour. Absolutely. If you haven't joined my Wind Down Wednesday, then you don't know how I like to have fun as well. So welcome everyone. I really created this. How many of you resonated? If you resonated with the title of this webinar, put yes in the chat, right? Like put yes in the chat. If you resonated with this, if you are a first generation high earner who did all the things, right? Everything you were told to do, college, career, you made it to six figures or beyond, and now you're wondering, man, why don't I feel like, things are as what do I want to see, worry free as they should be. Well, that's really what I'm going to share with you in our presentation today. I want you to know I am you. I'm a first generation high earner, first in my family to, complete college, go through a graduate degree, all the things. And yet what I found, and I didn't find this out, ladies, until I kind of stumbled into my career, is that for first generation high earners, what the wealthy know, we're not taught. And typically, we're not only are we not taught what to do once we hit a certain level, but it's not covered in our formal education. And so as a result, I think we feel a lot of shame around not having, we see other people getting ahead, other people, maybe not paying as much in taxes as we do. And we're wondering, man, I should know this. Or maybe do you find people are more sophisticated, like they're doing different investment strategies and you don't know how and you don't know why? If you can relate to that, everybody says, yes, yes, yes. Well, you're in the right place because what I want you to know is some of the strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you are not really taught through your formal education, right? This knowledge is inherited. And so I hope to be sharing those insights with you today. So I'm going to turn on my presentation. Can everyone see my presentation? Let me know if you can in the chat. I'm going to keep my chat up though, so I can keep an eye on that. Just tell me yes if you can see the presentation. Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about why we're here, right? Wealth secrets of first generation high earning women is the topic. You probably can't read that, but just know that the reason I'm sharing this with you is, and I'll talk about it a little later, I've been really committed to helping women specifically take ownership of their financial success. And I'll tell you how I got on that path. I had ended up in the investment industry, had a pretty fast trajectory, but spent most of my career with Fidelity Investments. And it's there that I got exposed to high net worth wealth strategies that I realized many of us, unless you already have millions, will never get exposed to. And so I went on this journey really to share those secrets, ergo the wealth secrets. I've already started that, but still, if you're just joining us and you just came in, I'd love it if you would introduce yourself in the chat and let me know where you're from. If you could do that, that would be awesome. Excellent. I just want to make sure I've got everybody in here who needs to be in here. Outstanding. Okay, so the other question I have is, what did you hope to learn? You know, I have a formal presentation, but I really am interested in knowing, you took the time to come to this presentation. What did you hope to learn by attending? And you can put those in the chat. Let me make sure I can see everyone. Yeah. What did you hope to learn during this event? And if I'm not going to cover it, I'll say so. And if I can double click on it, I will. But it's just, I'm a marketer and an entrepreneur. Fantastic, because that's great, you sharing that with me, because what it also allows me to do is to give you some insight around if you're an entrepreneur. By the way, how many of you are self-employed? If you're self-employed, put self in the chat. And if you're with a company, put I'm an employee. So Letitia says both. Monet says both. Chatiqua says, I hope I pronounced that correctly, employee. I just want to know who's in the room. Fantastic. Because these are relevant to whether you're an employee or an entrepreneur, or both in many cases. I think in this day and time, you almost have to be. And it's interesting, some studies came out on multicultural wealth. And for multicultural wealth, particularly Black women specifically, many of those who were able to get into the high net worth bracket were dual, right? Entrepreneur and employee. So stay until the end, and I'm going to give you a gift. But I want to start out by asking all of you to tell me in the chat, what is your highest monthly expense? What is your highest monthly expense? So Chatiqua says mortgage. Okay, mortgage. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that question in just a moment, but I first want to talk about who this webinar is for. So just so you know that, you know, what this is focused on. So you could be the overachiever, high educational attainment, multiple degrees, checked all the boxes, college career management track. You belong to sorority, alumni association, committee chair. You're an industry rock star. Perhaps you're even a conservative investor, and you're in a high tax bracket. If that's you, put me in the chat. If I described you. Now, you could be a corporate trailblazer. First generation postgraduate, you've got the MD, the MBA, the JD, the PhD. You made it to senior management, manager, director, partner. Because of your multiple degrees, you could be several $100,000 in student loans. Your retirement savings is low relative to your earnings. You could have a negative net worth as a result, and you're in a high tax bracket. If that's you, put me in the chat. And you could be a combination of these. These are just attributes that I see when you're a first generation high earner. So you could have left the corporate fast track to start a family, decided to stay home for work-life balance. Perhaps you even used your retirement savings while you were off. You're re-entering the workforce at a lower salary, and you have inadequate retirement savings. If that's you, put me in the chat. Okay. Or perhaps you're the entrepreneur. Left a cushy corporate job with cushy benefits to start your own business. You could be consulting as a solopreneur, or again, there's some employee entrepreneurs in here, and you're trying to create financial security as a business owner, I would say high earners are six figures or more, right? Like that was the ding, 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 the thing that was drilled into us. So if you're, or you could be, your funds could be old employer plan is still sitting at your prior employer. How many of you have have moved around and your 401ks haven't moved with you and you have no clue what to do next? Okay. If any of those attributes I just explained to you, you're in the right place, because what I want you to know, how many of you have multiple degrees? If you have multiple degrees, put me in the chat, right? Like if you have a bachelor's and a master's, right? Or if you got a bachelor's and a master's and a PhD, or if you've got if you have multiple degrees, typically that's high educational attainment. And one of the reasons you did that, because you were told you would make the more degrees. So let me ask you, were you told that the more degrees you received, the more salary or income you were earned? If that's what you were told, put yes in the chat. Like every one of those degrees are going to allow you to make more money. And what I have found, Emma says yes, BA says yes. What I have found in my work with women, first generation wealth builders, I'll put it that way, right, is that was the wrong blueprint. And what I have found is that because we received the right blueprint, the wrong blueprint, we were taught to earn the income, but no one ever taught us how to turn our income into wealth. Can you relate to that? Well, what I want you to share with you is the woman on the left. She gave me that blueprint. That's my mother, and she's recently married, about 19 years old at the time. On the other side, that's me. My high school graduation picture. Now, I never knew how much I looked like my mother until I put these two pictures together. And what I would say to you is my mother was remarkable. She put everything into me. I was the youngest. And so by the time socioeconomically, I came along, they could do a lot of things, invest in me. And so there was dance, there was piano, there was private high school and college, right? So does that relate? Can you guys relate to that? Did you have parents who wanted you to have more than they did? And so they drilled into you education, 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 career, career, career. If that's you, put yes in the chat, right? So I just want you to know I am you. But it wasn't until my parents separated when I was in college after 33 years of marriage. And that really was an awakening for me. Number one, it taught me that, yes, Letitia, I'm also a first generation college grad. So that's what I mean by first generation, right? And what it caused me to really be so focused on was making sure as a woman I could take care of myself, right? That I could take care of myself. So I told my mom, don't worry about me, Mom. I'm going to take care of myself. So I started working, and then I dropped out of college, started working in retail. And then I had a friend who knew a friend who worked at this investment company and got me an interview. And as soon as I walked in the door, I just got to tell you this, I knew they knew. So there was something I didn't know that they knew. And in fact, when I looked up, there was a ticker tape, an electronic ticker tape going above the receptionist desk. Well, long story short, I interviewed. The only role they had was as a receptionist, and I took that job because I said, you know what? Even though I took a pay cut, I said, sometimes you got to take a step back to go forward. That choice ultimately changed the financial trajectory of my life. But what I learned once I got inside of that big investment company was that the wealthy people had a different blueprint. what my mom had given me was the earner mindset. And she told me that earn as much as you can and you will be financially successful. But what I learned being in the investment companies was that the high net worth, the strategies that they had was the owner mindset. And I watched as they had investments and they turned their income into wealth. They invested in assets, and ladies, that changed everything. And so I found myself being recruited by Fidelity Investments. I went on to have a tremendous career. Fidelity was so supportive of me. Imagine 20 years ago, right, in the 90s, and being a VP, worked my way up from financial consultant to VP branch manager to managing the West Coast, working with high net worth individuals, came back to DC. That's what brought me to this area. Well, actually, my husband's job. They made a position for me in DC. I opened and it's interesting, that almost looks like the Investor Center, our prototype Investor Center in Washington, DC. And man, it was then that I decided that me knowing wasn't enough. And so Fidelity sponsored my first radio show. It was amazing, right? But here's what I learned. I learned that the wealthy pay less in taxes because they know something we don't, right? So here's a, billionaires are getting richer and are avoiding taxes in the process. But us, on the other hand, we pay the highest tax rates because our earned income is taxed at the highest rate. But what the wealthy know is they know the secret. So there I am. This is my first corporate picture when I was part of launching the prototype in Washington, D.C. And it was at that point that I wanted to tell the secrets. And so I actually convinced Fidelity to sponsor my first radio show on WOL in DC, where I got my first start, right, in radio. And then I wanted to go on and share these secrets with the world. And as a result, I went on this journey. So I left the Fidelity Investments and I went on to write several different books. So that's my shot of me at the radio board. That's my first book, Confident Investing, where I literally wrote put everything in that book that I could about the basics of investment, what I thought first generation investors needed to know. I went on to tour with Bishop T.D. Jakes and his God's Leading Ladies tour, and I thought, surely I can get these secrets out to the world. And then my next book, A Purse of Your Own, was published, and we launched the A Purse of Your Own campaign. That's our PBS television special. And at the end of that book, I encouraged women to start purse groups where 5 to 10 women got together and they read one chapter of the book and they would apply the principles in the book. Over 1,400 groups started, and yet many of them failed. Anybody want to guess why? You can want to guess why they failed. I learned a valuable lesson there. And here I am, I'm on CNN, and I thought, man, I have hit the promised land. Now, I had a mission to help 1 million women get to $1 million in investable assets, and I felt like everything changes. But it didn't. And it wasn't until I launched WealthyU where I really, really began to understand exactly what first generation women needed in order to accelerate their financial growth to 7 figures and beyond and build legacy wealth. And it was at the urging of my son, who said, Ma, you can write all the books in the world, but people don't need information, they need application. And isn't that funny? My son, who still does strategy for me now, but he is the reason we launched WealthyU. And now hundreds and then thousands of women have learned how to apply these secrets themselves and accelerate their financial growth, learn tax advantage strategies so that they can then pass this knowledge on to their families So now they have that inherited knowledge. Anybody in the chat, if you'd like to hear how these women are doing it, who wants to hear some amazing stories? If you want to hear, this is participation now. I need you to put yes in the chat. Put yes in the chat if you want to hear. Exactly. So what I finally realized was that we had been given the wrong blueprint, and I set about the business of creating a blueprint specifically for first generation wealth builders. This is the blueprint. This is the journey that is now responsible for thousands of women accelerating their financial growth. There are 3 levels to it. The first is a financial awakening, and you're here. You're on the first level because what you didn't realize was that you needed a different blueprint. And that now what I hope to share with you is the blueprint, and I'll come back to that a little later. So here's Belinda. So Belinda has been, and she's still a member of our community. Before joining WealthyU, she had delegated all of her investments to an advisor without understanding their recommendations. She was 20 years into her career and was not on track with her retirement savings. Her personal rate of return in her portfolio was less than 5% and barely growing each year. Her advisor had transferred her into some really high fee annuity funds, and they had high surrender charges. In order for her to come out of them, she would have had to pay a fee. So since joining WealthyU, she learned how to analyze and research her portfolio. We call it analyze, optimize, and maximize. So you increase your rate of return so your money can grow faster. She achieved 7 figures, accelerated beyond seven figures in her retirement plan, established a brokerage account and a separate investment portfolio outside of her 401k, established a backdoor IRA, and created an estate plan. And this is a text that I got from her one morning that said, "Deborah, I learned last night I've become one of those women with a 7-figure retirement account. I cannot thank you enough. If only I had taken a class from you sooner." Who knows what that account could be? Well, I'm just going to tell you, she's still doing quite well, right? So the point I want to make is this is when I realized I had the right blueprint and was able to now help hundreds of women get to 6 to 7. Some are above 7 and running for 8. And how many of you feel like, wow, if Belinda could do it, I could do it too? If you believe that, put yes. Like if you believe, if you had the right blueprint, if you believe that you've been making, you know how to earn the money, but if you just had the right blueprint that you could accomplish this too, I want to tell you, you can. And that is what I share in my book, Wealth Secrets. And everyone's story, Belinda's stories is in this book, Wealth Secrets, right? And so transformation stories in the book, there's 7 main wealth secrets. And that literally is the blueprint. And it's almost the opposite of what you're told. And that's the other point I want to make. And so this blueprint now helps you understand exactly what the wealthy know that you don't. So we teach first-generation higher earning women tax advantage strategies that help them turn their income into wealth. And so today, just for purposes, I just shared with you there's 7 secrets, but I'm going to share with you the first secret. This is the first secret I discovered, and that is the fundamental thing. And this is what you have to understand, is that you need to make the shift from an earner mindset to an owner mindset. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I just said earlier that the wealthy know what we don't. They know how to use tax advantage strategy. And basically, this is a list of all the biggest tax breaks. And the truth is that the way our economic system is set up, it's set up to reward investment, entrepreneurship, and real estate, right? That's what it's set up to reward. And so if you can see, the biggest tax loophole is capital gains and dividends. And the reason Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, and all of those pay lower taxes is because more of their income comes in the form of capital gains and dividends. And they're able to offset a lot of that income with the other types of investments that they have. Real estate that allows them to write off depreciation. I'm not going to get too technical now, but here's what I want to break it down for you. Okay, I want you to just understand. We've been taught to be on this side, the earner side. And the earner, whether they work for a corporation or whether they're a solopreneur, the only real benefits, the deductions that we get to write off. And all of you said, when I asked you what was your highest, when I asked you what was your highest bill, you said your mortgage. And I'm going to just, for a moment, I want you to think about this. It's not your mortgage. It's your tax bill. I want you all to think about this. Now, tax time is coming up. And what I want to understand, I want you to take out that W-2, and I want you to look at how much you pay in federal, state, local, and property taxes. And I assure you, that is your highest bill. Agree or disagree with me in the chat. Okay, no worries. We'll make sure you get it, the recording. Agree or disagree? Our taxes, your highest bill. Yes, federal taxes so much. So what if you could turn your expenses into deductions and pay less in taxes? What if you could turn your income into capital gains, dividends, and depreciation, and so that you're able to now have the benefit of offsetting some of that income? And you can do it whether you work for a company or not. The key is understanding how to structure that income and how to take advantage of tax advantage strategies. And so here's an example of someone doing that. So one of our members, Sharon, returned to school to obtain her MBA. She self-financed that MBA, even though she was already an MD. She was like, I wish I'd have met you earlier. But anyway, she was not being fully compensated for that education and experience. How many of you feel like you got all that education and you're not being compensated for it? If that's you, put yes in the chat. And that is why her net worth did not reflect her lifetime earnings. But let me just show you, when you get the right blueprint, this is what happens. She immediately increased her net worth, started making the right types of tax advantage strategies, created a real estate investment property from her existing home. And then that began her journey into real estate, invested in real estate and limited partnerships, fully employed, but those investments allowed her to reduce her tax liability using tax advantage strategies, right? So all I want you to know is even if you're employed, you can employ tax advantage strategy. This is Dia. High earner, lower investment returns. No investments outside of her 401k, high tax liability. After joining WealthyU, analyze, optimize, and maximized and increase the returns on her investment. Invested in her employee stock purchase program, which a lot of people don't know. You can buy your company, I mean, provided it is a good investment. You need to analyze and research it, but typically you can buy 10 to 15% below market value. Any of you work for a public company? Many of you can have health savings accounts. I'm going to talk about that a little later. She established a brokerage account and built a stock portfolio and is not investing in real estate. This is Stacy, true story, high earner, low investment returns, no investments outside of her 401k, high tax liability. Since joining WealthyU, had 92K in student loan forgiveness, and that's by we have different experts that we partner with who provide just tremendous value to our members. Analyze, optimize, and maximize and increase the returns on her investments, invested in a health savings account. Why health savings accounts? Because they allow you to put money in, grow, you can invest it, grow tax deferred, you can use it. You can use it for medical expenses, but the other benefit, it works just like a Roth IRA. You reach a certain retirement age and you can get access to this money. This is another one of our former members, head of marketing and emerging markets for a global health and fitness company. She had invested in mutual funds through her 401k, limited exposure to analyzing and researching stocks, but she had a high penchant for risk, as she says, because she knew real estate. But since joining WealthyU, not only did she establish an investment portfolio, but she also launched Open Venture Capital to raise more than $10 million for early stage investments. She created a program to teach women how to invest in real estate, and she's established investment portfolios for her children. So now I want you to take notes because I want you to understand here are some of the tax advantage strategies for high earners. Now, for many of you, you said that you're working for an employer. So one of the things that are often overlooked is this HSA account. This is a triple tax-free health account. You get to deduct it off of your income. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but that can really grow over time. So how many of you, if you're taking advantage of your HSA, your health savings account, put HSA, put yes in the chat. Just put yes, okay? If you're not, go and check to see if you have that opportunity. Now, I don't mean flexible spending account. I mean health savings account. They were primarily if you have a high deductible plan, but everybody's plan is high deductible. Now, everything procedure you look for, it's $1,000, right? So I want you to investigate that. Many of you, this is all I want to tell you, are standing 10 feet away from goal, but you're simply not taking advantage of it. So the other thing is, so you may have a traditional, how many of you have a traditional and a Roth 401k or 457 or retirement plan? I just want to know how many of you have that option. Letitia says, I have both. Now, how you invest, whether it should be a Roth or regular, depends. And so you really need to crunch the numbers. But if you're a high earner, you probably are going to need that tax deduction. Now, in addition to that, what many people don't know is you don't qualify for a traditional IRA. Well, excuse me. Most of you do qualify for a traditional IRA, you just can't deduct it. But what you can do is you can do what's called a backdoor IRA. How many have you guys had, if you've heard of a backdoor Roth, if you will, that's what I mean, put yes in the chat. The other thing that's sitting on the table for many of you have additional deferred compensation programs through your employer, but you may not have even been exposed to it. That is another way of accumulating, if you will, tax advantaged investment. Letitia says, great stocks. If you've got a stock purchase program, I'm going to say make sure that you're analyzing the company itself. But typically, you can get a 10 to 15% return because you get to buy the stock at a discount. If you have children, many people don't know, 529 plans, it used to be if you put that money in there and it had to be used for school purposes. A recent law change says if your child doesn't go to school, then you're going to be able to use that for retirement. So that should not prohibit you thinking, oh, I don't know if he's going to go to college. Best to do it. If things don't work out, at least you've already done it. The other thing are after-tax IRA contributions. I talked about that to be subsequently Roth converted, but also even some of your after-tax 401k contributions can be converted to a Roth. But also what many people, if you're self-employed and you're over 50, and you can put away some serious dollars in a defined contribution plan. This says up to 66,000, depending upon your age and how much income you can have, really play retirement catch up and have your company pay for it. Of course, that is, if you're self-employed or you own a corporate, an S corp, other ways to defer. What I want all of you to understand is that you have got to learn how to use these. And then finally, this is where I saw the bulk of wealth being held, and it is in creating a stock portfolio that's paying dividends. Those dividends are paid out at a lot. And so this is outside of your IRA though, right? In order for you to take advantage of this, long-term capital gains pay a lower tax as well as dividends. And that's simply the way our tax system is set up. And then finally, making sure that you have estate plans set up so that, I mean, the estate plans for, I think, couples right now is almost $26 million. So if your estate's less than that, they're saying that that law is going to go back. But the point is, I hope this is making sense to you. There are tax advantage strategies that are right in front of you. Oh, and by the way, the other point I want to make sure you are taking advantage of all of your benefits, right? All of your benefits, whether it's your tuition reimbursement. Many of you have self-development funds that are going unused, and you could be using them to go into programs like this that allow you to learn how to analyze, optimize, and establish wealth for your family. Okay, typically most of your programs say you have to use a certificate and get a certificate from the program, and many of those we qualify for too. But here's the other thing I want you to see. Are any of you over 50 or nearing 50? In the chat, if you're over 50 or nearing 50, put yes in the chat. I want you to know there's still hope. And for those of you who maybe any of you feel like you've got to start, like you got a late start, like, can I really, Miss Owens is saying, oh, well, she helps people to get to 7 figures on. Is it too late for me? Do any of you feel like time is getting away? Letitia says early 40s. Do any of you feel like, man, I wish I had started earlier? Do any of you feel like, wow, I should have more in my in retirement, but life kind of got in the way, kids, I wasn't able to contribute enough. Do any of you feel that way? Well, basically what I want you, Letitia says yes. Okay, all of you've got enough. Okay, that's great. Yeah, you know what? You can't change what you will not acknowledge. But here's the point I want to make. This is someone starting at 50, doing the maximum catch-up contribution, right? So in this case, they can still get beyond 7 figures, right? And this is a fairly conservative return. This is 8%. Okay, or you're putting the maximum, which now is 22,500. In 20 years, you could still get to $1 million. Or let's say all you can afford to do is $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 a year. You can get to just over $500,000, and this is with a 8% return. If you analyze, optimize, and maximize your returns, it could be more than that. The point I want to make with this is get started. It doesn't matter what amount. I don't care if it's $500 a month, right? Like you have got to invest in your future. Now, everything that I've talked about today is in my book, Wealth Secrets. And because you all stayed to the end, guess what? You're going to get a copy of it as well. But all I want you to know is that all you need is a transformational blueprint that provides access to knowledge. And that's exactly what we do at WealthyU. So if you've been so far so good, let me just stop for just a minute. let me stop sharing and come up. I would love to hear your feedback. Are there any questions on what I covered? Any questions on what I covered so far? I would
Um,
love to hear. Go ahead.
hi everyone. My name is Jatikwa. I currently live in both New York and DC, so would love to do a happy hour or something. Um, my more of a comment. I think that I get very overwhelmed with all of the opportunities to invest your wealth. So there's brokerage accounts, there's retirement accounts, there's employee stock, there's so many things that I get overwhelmed, and then I just end up doing nothing. And so my question would sort of be like, how do you get started? With all the things that are available, getting a decent paycheck. I just feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, no, Jatikwa, that's a great, what do I want to say? Question around how do you know what to do, right? Like, here's what I want you to know. It's different for everyone, right? And WealthyU, one of the things that we've learned is that the women who get the furthest, the fastest, what they do is they identify what their opportunity levers. We call them investment opportunity levers. So I just talked about a lot of different things, right? I said, well, if you got a stock option plan, make sure you're doing this. Well, so people always ask me, well, Miss Owens, what should I do? And you know what I tell them? The first thing you need to do is to crunch the numbers. And so I'm gonna just share with you how we do it in WealthyU. The first thing that you have to understand, this is the journey, this is the legacy wealth blueprint. So right now you're here. Like what I've shared with you is the fact that we were given the middle class mindset, or what is the earner mindset. And what you have to do is shift to that wealth mindset and then figure out, okay, how much do I need? And based on how you need, that's going to be your legacy wealth blueprint. So the next thing to answer Jatikwa's problem, the next or question, the next thing is, what is your situation, right? Like, what do you need to do to analyze, optimize, and maximize your situation? And so that is going to depend on what is available to you, right? So I'm going to tell everyone here, the first place you need to start is exactly at what's in front of you. And that is your employer sponsored benefits. Trust me, they're paying an administrative fee for you to have access to it. But in some cases, your employer sponsored plans may not give you a lot of options. And so you've got to pick the best of the best. And that's going to inquire you to analyze them to see what are the best returns. And then finally, you have to go from being a passive investor to an active investor. And what I mean by that is not trading stocks, but understanding what's in your actual portfolio. And so to that end, one of the things that I wanted to make sure all of you get an opportunity to take advantage of is by attending this webinar. What I want to offer all of you is the ability to have what we call in WealthyU a wealth ignition session to create your actual legacy wealth blueprint. Like if you will just take a picture of that QR code that is on the screen, or you can go to that link, bit.ly link, WealthyU Ignition. I'll make sure I put it in the chat. And I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity to see what your what blueprint what levers you need to pull in that blueprint to go further faster. True story. And it's funny, Tanya just joined WealthyU, but I did a challenge last week, and one of our members was on, And one of the things that she had discovered was that for 20 years, she had had a negative 3.3% return. Now, how is that even possible? I want you to think about this. You're having this money taken out of your check every week, and all you see, it's increasing, right? But one of the things I want to encourage all of you is to find out what your personal rate of return is. Like if you go into your accounts and you go to performance, sometimes it's not that easy. But in your wealth ignition session, if you sign up for it, I will allow you to, I will help you find out what that is. And I mean, bar none, like if we look at the historical returns of investments, if we look at just average, very conservative, the S&P 500, over the past 30 years, even historically, stocks have returned 10 to 12%. So that's what you should be earning, right? If your rate of return is not above average, then you have to be willing to take the time to investigate what are the investments that you need to allocate your funds into. But the second thing I want you to know is it's not enough to earn this money. Many of you are not optimized. And so as a result, rather than paying yourself and having your money grow into assets, you're paying more to Uncle Sam. So the question I have for you is, I started this out. What if you could reduce that bill so it's not always the largest bill you're paying? Would that make sense to you? If it would, put yes in the chat. But the floor is open. I mean, if you would like to take advantage of the wealth ignition, Tanya says yes, Dion says yes, yes. What I want you to know is that they really are, we're just not taught. That's all I want you to know. And I don't want you to feel any shame around, oh, great, Letitia. I don't want you to feel any shame around this, right? Like you may go out and your colleagues are talking about the markets and earnings just came out and this sort of thing. And you're wondering like, wow, why don't I know that? Right? Because typically this is the kind of knowledge that is shared through families, right? So when I went into the investment industry, typically when a child from a wealthy family. And in fact, I was just at this conference speaking and I had an estate planning attorney with me. And she was saying, yeah, with our clients, they bring their kids in and then we go over the estate plan and we talk about, I was like, really? Oh, it's when they go away to college, right? And that's what I saw over and over and over. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right, right? But what if your parents didn't have that for you? Like, I didn't have a trust fund or anything like that. Anybody in here have a trust fund or their parents sat them down and kind of said, yes, this is what your grandfather gave us, and now we're giving it to you, right? And so, I know that for many of us, this can feel like very off-putting, and to Chatikwa put it absolutely correct. You can be overwhelmed, right? Like you should be doing something, but what? So many people know, but I want to put my daughter to have one. That's exactly right. So here's all I want to say. The point and the reason that I do this work, it's not just about the money, right? Like I know I want you to accelerate. I want you to take your money and I want to turn that money into wealth. But what I want you to understand, and what I had to finally come to understand myself, is that the most valuable asset are not the assets themselves. It's the knowledge of how to build it, right? Because then you hear all the time, very wealthy folks taking risk, maybe going into early stage investment, maybe the first thing didn't work out, but guess what they do? They go right back to the table and they run that play again. And so I think the most important thing that the women learn in WealthyU is you never lose. right? So we're risk averse, and that risk aversion is directly correlated to our lack of knowledge, right? Agree or disagree? So the less you know, the more fearful. Would you agree with that? Agree. So all of you are experts in what you do, but you didn't start out that way. As you got experience, as you made some mistakes and recovered and learned some great lessons, because I think the best lessons are learned from mistakes, right? Then you were able to move on, go forward, gain more knowledge, gain more experience, gain more confidence, be able to create more value as a result. The same is true of the knowledge of how to build wealth. So again, the floor is open. I said I would stop right at 2 o'clock. Are there any more questions? Any more questions?
Hey, Deborah. So this is Letitia.
Hi, Letitia.
Um, Hi. So I don't more so have a question, just a bit like a sense of frustration because I've been at this like trying to really gain an understanding and a hold on like wealth and wealth creation for years. But I keep working with people, like financial advisors, like for example, Northwestern Mutual, right? Where like, oh, you need this plan, you need to invest here, you need to do that. But like what I'm looking for is somebody who could really like serve in like more of a partnership with me, who can guide me and say and help me understand like this is what you have in your portfolio. This is where you're investing. This is where you need to put your money. Like I just haven't been able to find that. So I found myself like joining all these and listening to people and feeling like, hey, yeah, this is gonna be the one, and then it's never the one.
Well,
So
yeah, that's great. That's why I started Wealthy. I came out of the industry. I still, early on, still had a lot of financial services companies who were clients, and, where I did financial education with them or through them. But what I want you all to understand is that they're all different types of advisors, and they're all different types of investors. And a lot of times you hear people say, well, I'm fiduciary, right? Meaning I hold your interest at heart. But I think as a consumer, as an investor, you cannot relegate your financial future to anyone, right? Which is why I started WealthyU. I said, I don't believe people need products. I think people need knowledge of how to choose the right things that are for them. And so in WealthyU, we actually give you a framework. I mean, you literally learn how to analyze and research those investments in your 401k so that you can make the right decision, right? So it's not about us telling and recommending what you would do, because then if we recommend something and then it doesn't turn out, or you don't understand why something is happening a certain way, right? You don't know why. And so in WealthyU, you learn how to analyze and research we start with right where you are with your existing investments. So you analyze, we call it analyze, optimize, and maximize those, right? Then you move on to where you actually learn how to analyze and research stocks. Fundamentally, the way an investment analyst would learn it, right? Then you learn proper asset allocation, meaning, okay, how much should I have in stocks and how much should I have in bonds? Then you move on. I'll go back to the blueprint. The blueprint is really to guide you in a logical way of how you should approach building your investments, right? So that, okay, you are in control. And not only that, there is a triple down effect in WealthyU. The whole reason you're learning this is so that when your kids get their first 401k, or rather than buying them things, they've now got a 529 plan that you're putting those investments in. The whole goal is for you to have this knowledge yourself, be able to apply it confidently, and then to transfer to your children. So I really want to encourage you. I'm not into pitching people, you've got to do this. No, I want you to, if you have a wealth ignition session, I'm going to give you insight, right? Into where you are right now and how you can optimize it. If you choose to go on and try to do it yourself, you can do that. But if you want to join a community of first generation wealth builders who are every week, they're applying these things. They're now all I got to tell you is it's not, like you gotta meet us halfway. You gotta be willing to do the work. If you're willing to do the work and learn, and acquire this knowledge so that you have the knowledge of how to build wealth. That's what WealthyU is about, really helping you do that and no longer feeling so overwhelmed as Chatikwa, I'm going to remember that name, said, right? Or feeling like these people are putting you in different products. I mean, literally, you are going to, if somebody approaches you with any kind of opportunity, you're going to be able to say to them, you know what? It sounds good. I'll evaluate it, right? And then you're going to have the knowledge through which to evaluate whether or not it meets your goals and objectives and it has proof of performance. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Results. Do you agree?
Agreed.
Okay, awesome. Well,
Thank
thanks
you.
so much for coming in. Again, all of you will be receiving a copy of my book, Wealth Secrets, if you registered for the program and gave us your email. Again, thank you so much. You can join our WealthyU community. We have a Facebook group. You can follow me on my social media channels. Just Google Deb Owens, or if you want more information about WealthyU, just go to wealthyu.com. I'm going to put it in the chat. And we have an amazing event though. Now, look, I'm burying the lead. Listen, if you're in the DMV and you want to be with a group of women who are building wealth together, a lot of our members will be there. I'll have experts there on real estate, tax strategy. It's April 6th, 5th, 6th, and 7th at the National Harbor, the Westin at the National Harbor outside of Washington, D.C. I'm going to put the link in the chat. This is our first live event since COVID, so I'm really, really excited about it. That link didn't click though, hang on. Oh, I know why. It's Legacy Wealth, not Wealthy. Let me put that in there. If you'd like to join us, I'd love for you guys to come out. You guys have a great afternoon, and thanks so much for tuning in with us. Have a great day, everybody, and I look forward to having a conversation, and I look forward to you reading the Wealth Secrets book. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Deb.